vote in big numbers. As part of that effort, the Republican nominee has made appearances on podcasts and YouTube shows that are popular with young men. He's also got a little help from the America PAC, which is a pro-Trump super PAC started by the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. America PAC has put out ads targeting young men and is working to get them to participate in this year's election. The PAC also made headlines this week when it began offering $47 payouts for whoever can get a registered swing state voter to sign an online petition pledging to support the First and Second Amendments. Easy money, to quote Musk, who has now fully thrown his support behind Donald Trump's campaign. The Tesla CEO initially backed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis during the Republican primary and was previously hesitant to publicly endorse the former president. He's now one of Trump's highest-profile backers and staunchest allies. Last weekend, Musk made a surprise appearance alongside Trump during his return to Butler, Pennsylvania, where a shooter attempted to assassinate the former president over the summer. As the two men have grown closer, Musk's politics have become noticeably more Trumpian. He's been parroting a lot of Trump's talking points, platforming the former president's dark rhetoric regarding border security and election interference. Like Trump, Musk has taken up the habit of calling Harris a communist, even going as far as posting an AI-generated image of the vice president in communist garb and falsely claiming that Harris, quote, vows to be a communist dictator on day one. He's also amplified right-wing conspiracy theories related to the ongoing hurricane relief efforts, including the baseless allegations that FEMA used its budget to illegally transport migrants into the country. As a result of their growing friendship, Trump has said that if elected, he would create a so-called Government Efficiency Commission, and he would tap Musk to lead it. Trump said that the commission's goal would be to conduct, quote, complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and make recommendations for drastic reforms. That proximity to power is the crux of the matter here. Musk's political shift is due in part to the scrutiny that his various businesses have faced under the Biden administration. Over the past few years, multiple government agencies have taken numerous actions against Musk's companies. Those actions include a lawsuit filed by the Justice Department alleging that SpaceX discriminated against refugees and asylum seekers in its hiring process. Separately, the Environmental Protection Agency found that SpaceX violated the Clean Water Act when it released pollutants into bodies of water near its Texas facility. The National Labor Relations Board also sued Tesla last year for discouraging workers at a plant in Buffalo, New York, from unionizing. The National Highway Traffic Administration has had an ongoing investigation since 2021 into Tesla's self-driving mechanism. The list goes on. Musk stands to personally and professionally benefit from his alliance with Trump, who has similarly complained about the extent of the government's regulatory oversight. And it may also serve the interests of Musk's business partners and peers in the industry. Joining me now are Sheila Kolhatkar, staff writer for The New Yorker, host of the program Playing by the Rules, and author of the book Black Edge. Also joining us, Hayes Brown, columnist and editor at MSNBC Daily. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for being here. Sheila, let me start with you. Musk and his companies are not the only ones who have faced scrutiny from government agencies over the past few years. One of the points that Roger McNamee made in the last hour is that the Biden administration is using existing laws, not new laws, to try and regulate the tech industry. And this is not sitting well with a lot of tech titans, particularly with Elon Musk.
I think ultimately a lot of very, very wealthy business people end up voting their bank accounts rather than their conscience. And a lot of the support that we've seen emerge for Trump from the tech sector, from very wealthy business moguls, stems from the fact that many of them have faced really intense scrutiny over the last few years. And one area where that has been, very lively is the antitrust realm, where we have a very sort of aggressive, forward-thinking FTC chair, Lina Khan. The head of antitrust at the Justice Department is also a sort of very enlightened thinker on antitrust. And although some of the big antitrust cases that we've seen unfold recently were launched during the Trump administration, many of the prosecutions and a lot of the progress has occurred under Biden. So it's not that shocking to see people like Elon Musk and other big tech moguls, suggesting that all of that should be scrapped. It's hurting innovation. And basically making deals with Trump that he will keep keep the government's hands off of their business interests.
Hayes, Elon Musk was not always a Trump supporter or a loyalist. He's previously supported and donated to Democratic candidates in various races. He then supported Ron DeSantis as opposed to Donald Trump. But boy, he has become one seriously enthusiastic Trump fanboy. What do you make of this alliance between Musk and Trump and the interests that they potentially share?
I mean, the biggest interest they have is making audiences like them. That is the biggest commonality between the two of them. Even beyond, I'd say, their sort of like businessman appearances. Like, on the one hand, yes, both of them are given way too much credit for being savvy businessmen for products that they didn't really create. Like, Elon Musk didn't make Twitter. He didn't make Tesla. He earned his money being in early at PayPal and then cashing out and investing it in other places and buying other companies. Trump, real estate mogul, who for the last several decades has really been more of a brand than really a businessman. He's been licensing his name out to all sorts of products, which he is still doing, as you see from his NFTs, his sneakers, et cetera, et cetera. But both of them have this need to be liked. Trump at his rallies really is functionally the same as Elon Musk on Twitter, just looking for adulation and adoration, for people to be applauding the things they say. And when they get that positive feedback about the very negative things they're saying, they lean into it. I still remember Trump in 2016 telling the crowd that he didn't like the phrase "drain the swamp," but since they liked it, he'll keep repeating it. Elon Musk, he was not always the person we saw, but when he joined Twitter and started to make jokes that bombed and certain people started to bump him up instead, he was like, those people are great. I want to do what the people who make me feel good want and what they like. And that has drawn him further and further to the right.
Sheila, by now, many people are familiar with the Silicon Valley archetype of the disruptor. Someone who comes in, plays by their own rules, upends the industry. To some degree, I'm wondering whether these guys look at Trump and say he's the politics disruptor, and something feels attractive about the anti-establishment nature of Donald Trump. But that could be just entirely conjecture. Anything to that?
I think a lot of them, the tech founders and CEOs like to think of themselves as mavericks, who upended the economy and the way we do things. Now, ultimately, they don't have a lot of other interests or accomplishments in common with Trump. But what Trump is very savvily doing is he's sort of recognizing that this message appeals to those people. He wants their money and support. And he's at the same time taking advantage of these forces we've been seeing in the economy for some time, which have been, indicating that a lot of men, particularly working class white men of a certain age, are struggling and have been left behind by some of the economic advances. We had deaths of despair. That phrase emerged a few years ago to refer to a particular cohort of men who were dying prematurely of overdoses and suicides. Since then, we've learned that younger men are also struggling. They're not doing as well in school. More women are enrolling in college programs. They are taking longer, according to a Pew poll, to achieve financial independence. There are a lot more sort of young adult men still living with their parents. So I think Trump is doing something very cynical, but also quite clever. That he's promising these men who maybe felt a little frustrated seeing other groups advance while they themselves are floundering. And he's saying to them, you know what, I'm going to restore your primacy in our economy. The white male, the macho guy who might have seen, manufacturing leave his town, so he's out of work. But you are going to be restored to the center of American society. And that's obviously clicking with certain people.
Yeah, and then there's another aspect here, Hayes. At the end of the day, another thing that Trump and people like Musk have in common, these tech billionaires, there is a level of accountability none of them want to face up to. Donald Trump is trying to create a government that doesn't have him accountable. The Supreme Court is really helping him along with that one. But The tech industry has not faced necessarily accountability because we don't have the sorts of regulations largely in place to be able to do that. And that suits the Elon Musks of the world just fine. They'd like less of that.
Absolutely. And what we're seeing really is a new chapter of a very old story where this is a new version of the Gilded Era with robber barons who have fundamentally shifted society. The railroad barons, the oil barons, they did have a product that completely upended the way that Americans live their lives, that were seen as indispensable. The difference now being that with the amount of reach that people have, you don't have to necessarily buy a newspaper to reach X number of people or a magazine. You can buy Twitter like Elon Musk did. And the deep and cutting irony of the fact that these tech bros are using their positions of wealth and power to try to say to disaffected young men, if you vote for this man, he will make things better for you, is that at the crux of a lot of the issues is the fact that these men are accumulating wealth and power and not sharing it with people. Like the fact that so many of the industries that they support, like the people who are supporting Trump from the tech bro Silicon Valley space are all in on AI. They're all in on the sort of programs and that will reduce the amount of jobs that are needed from people who are maybe don't have a college education. They are literally creating industries that will pay people poorly, then turn around and say that, oh, you're paid poorly. I'm sorry that the government did this to you. And that is such a deeply cynical way of operating. And unfortunately, it seems like it is convincing some young men. The question is, will it convince enough of them to actually turn out to the polls and defy the history and show up to vote?
Thanks to both of you. Appreciate this discussion. Sheila Kolhatkar is a staff writer at The New Yorker, host of Playing by the Rules, and author of Black Edge. Hayes Brown is a columnist and editor at MSNBC's daily newsletter. All right, coming up, President Biden is in Florida right now. Here he is actually, this is live right now. He's in St. Petersburg, Florida. He's expected to meet with first responders, officials, and local residents. He's going to give remarks within the hour, which we'll bring to you live. Vice President Kamala Harris on the move right now in North Carolina, where she'll hold a campaign rally later this afternoon. But Harris has lately taken to asking voters to watch Trump rallies. And while in normal times it would perhaps be weird for a political candidate to urge people to pay more attention to their opponent, if you actually do watch Donald Trump speak, you might understand the strategy. For example, during a speech in Detroit a few days ago, Trump repeatedly insulted the city, telling folks there that their city had become, quote, decimated and looked more like a third world city. And then he said this.
And I enjoy what I do, and I love this, despite I could be right now in the most beautiful ocean on the sand, exposing my really beautiful body. So beautiful. To the sun and the surf. Skin cancer, right? To the sun and the surf all over the world. And or I could be in Detroit with you, and I'd rather be in Detroit with you.
Switch to Square and join over 4 million businesses worldwide. Turntables fast with Square Register at the counter or Square Terminal in your hand. Get a POS that connects to a KDS to handle orders ASAP. Easily take orders in person or online. And with Square Banking, get a loan quickly for everything from small repairs to the biggest dreams. Gain time and peace of mind with restaurant tools that bring everything together. Switch to Square today. Visit square.com to get started.
If we weren't proud of the craftsmanship and level of detail that go into every pair of Warby Parker glasses,